Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Wherever you are around the world, welcome to the Pro Tour final of Khans of Tarkir here at Honolulu. Rich Hagan in the booth alongside Pro Tour historian Brian David Marshall and Hall of Famer Luis Scott Vargas as we prepare to watch the best 3 out of 5 between this man, Shaun McLaren of Canada, your Pro Tour Born of the Gods champion, looking for a second Pro Tour title inside a year. Astonishing. It would make him one of the giants of the game, but in his path is Ari Lax of the United States, who has been rock solid throughout the weekend, one of the most studious players on tour, and all his hard work is paying off. Brian David Marshall, what's the matchup? What's in store?
Well, we've got Jeskai Wins in the hands of Shaun McLaren. He's looking to play Mantis Riders and burn spells and really just bury Ari Lax very early in the game. Ari playing Abzan Midrange. He's looking to survive, disrupt, Siege Rhino, Planeswalkers, and eventually just wear his opponent down.
There you see Shaun McLaren's hand. He has a Goblin Rabble Master, the card that took him to this final, a Jeskai Charm, Stoke the Flames, and 2 Dig Through Time, which is a card that Luis Scott Vargas, you are all over Dig Through Time.
Yeah, I think it's just maybe the best card in the new set. I mean, I think if you look at the whole con set, there's tons of good cards. But Dig Through Time, I think, just could be the eventual winner. I mean, Jeskai Ascendancy certainly has some brokenness, but Dig Through Time is going to be an all-format all-star.
Well, here is the first action of the final. It's best 3 out of 5, remember. So a maximum of 5 games as Goblin Rabble Master comes down and begins the fun for Shaun McLaren.
And so what Shaun is notably lacking here is white mana. He's unable to cast either of the 2 Jeskai Charms in his hand. Ari deciding whether he wants to Hero's Downfall now or wait to see what Shaun McLaren does.
Is this an upkeep?
Why do you do it during the upkeep there, Luis?
There's no particular reason. Maybe he wants to incite a Stoke the Flames out of Shaun McLaren's hand, but there's certainly no advantage to doing it.
I'm not going to do anything else.
And Ari just says, I don't know why I did that. Add that to the mass calcify from earlier.
Well, this time there was no real harm. I mean, he would actually not be even unhappy if McLaren just used a Stoke there. So McLaren drawing, I believe, all of his mountains here. Yeah, it looks like he's got a full 3 mountains. So he's actually missing blue mana, too. He can't even cast Dig. And he doesn't have a ton of time with these Siege Rhinos coming out.
Here's the Siege Rhino. Yeah, you get a look at Ari Lax's hand. Courser of Krufix, Sorin Solemn Visitor, I believe another Siege Rhino in the wings.
Yeah, and McLaren might be in a spot where he has to like block Siege Rhino with a Goblin token, then stoke the Flames the Siege Rhino, and that's not pretty.
Stoke you? Yeah.
Stoke you is the play.
So the reason he would do that is not because he thinks he's a realistic shot of burning Ari out anytime soon, but to fuel a Dig Through Time here, I think, is his best shot. Of course, drawing a Mantis Rider means that McLaren, I think, might be too far behind at this point. I mean, he already missed multiple turns. I think that was 1 turn too many of being unable to cast spells.
Right, because in comes Siege Rhino number 1, and if you're Ari Lax, there's every chance you're about to make it joined by Siege Rhino number 2, and there it is.
Drain you.
Drain you. And we are on the verge of a very, very fast game 1 for an Ari Lax who seems pretty nervous here in the final, in the early stages.
Yeah, I mean,
and there we go.
He's on the cusp of winning a Pro Tour, his first top 8. And that would make anyone nervous.
Yep, except possibly you. Were you nervous?
I was nervous in Berlin. I mean, I'm still nervous before I play in a Pro Tour now. I mean, that's just the anticipation, the excitement. It's all part of it.
Who was more nervous in that finals, you or Paul Cheon sitting in the front row watching you?
I've watched a lot of matches that I've cared about other people winning, and the fact that you have no control of the situation makes you pretty nervous.
All right, so the first game is done in lightning quick fashion, and it was Ari Lax who took it with Siege Rhino and Siege Rhino. Don't imagine they're going to be coming out of the sideboard anytime soon, but why don't we look at Shaun McLaren's sideboard? This is what he has to work with. Working from top left, a couple of End Hostilities, 2 Karanos God of Storms, 3 Dissolve, 2 Anger of the Gods, and then a Disdainful Stroke, double negate, Phyrexian Revoker, and 2 Erase. So we've already seen Jeskai Wins with Shaun McLaren up against a variety of Abzan decks. So what goes on here in terms of sideboarding as we head into game 2?
He's certainly going to take the Anger of the Gods out of his main deck. And I think, probably bring in the End Hostilities. And I don't know, he seems to bring in the 3 Dissolves in every matchup.
Well, if you want Dissolves against Sigurd's deck, you definitely want Dissolves here. I mean, same with Disdainful Stroke.
Same with Disdainful Stroke, absolutely.
Potentially even Negates. I mean, Ari has a lot of expensive Planeswalkers, yeah. And I think McLaren is going to try and morph into a kind of a Jeskai control deck. Keranos might even come in. I mean, I could see...
He's brought in Keranos in a lot of matchups over the course of the weekend.
Yeah, I could see him boarding like 10 cards, like boarding on Angers, Seekers, maybe some of the burn spells, and just morphing into a control deck, because the 4 dig-through times, again, support that plan very well.
Magma Jet, not terrific here.
Yeah, Magma Jet's at its worst. I mean, it doesn't actually kill anything from Ari's deck.
He barely kills things with Stoke the Flames.
Yeah, I mean, Magma Jet, I guess, kills Sorin or a Sorin token, but other than that, it does not do a whole lot.
The interesting thing there is that the dynamic of changing into control deck, if that is what he aims to do, is that absolutely guarantees that Ari has the opportunity to spend his 5, 6, 7 mana on big expensive planeswalkers and big siege rhinos, and that he's not going to get burnt out. Is that a great plan?
I think that it's pretty reasonable. I mean, Ari's deck is not super fast. I mean, Ari can pressure, as we saw with siege rhinos, but Ari doesn't have Fleece Mainline. Just the lack of that card already makes it so Ari is not really going to be able to kill Shaun before an End Hostilities can come and kind of, wipe the board.
All right, well, why don't we take a look at the sideboard that Ari Lax is working with here in the final. He also has End Hostilities, just 1 copy, Dune Blast there, Mass Calcify, then lots of removal in 3 Drown in Sorrow and 3 Bile Blight, 2 Murderous Cut, and then we have an Unravel the Ether plus 3 Planeswalkers at the end there. You see 1 Liliana Vess and 2 Nissa Worldwaker. Now, in previous iterations of our sideboard discussion, Louise, you've said, yeah, Nissa Worldwaker, not a big fan because it's only 4/4, the land. Now, is this time around 4/4 lands looking a bit better?
Well, it doesn't match up all that well against cards like Sarkhan or Mantis Rider, but if you think that McLaren's going to be on an End Hostility plan, I could see Nissa being decent. I mean, Nissa does help pressure without, adding more cards that get killed by End Hostilities.
What else goes in?
There's not a whole lot else. I mean, Bile Blight kills Mana Strider or Goblin Rabblemaster, but it's not unreasonable to assume that some amount of Rabblmasters might not even be in McLaren's deck after board. Murderous Cut is another card that it's very efficient, but if you think McLaren's boarding out of creatures, then I could see the way that both these decks board could vary so much that I could see like multiple reboarding happening.
I was just going to ask you, are we going to see a world where there's a McLaren control deck in game 2, and then in game 3, suddenly it's like, here comes Rabblemaster, crush you, crush you, crush you, and then take them all out again for a potential game 4?
Yeah, I mean, in a best-of-5 series, you actually can really see the counterplay go on in sideboarding, and that's a really awesome part about best-of-5. So getting to see that, sort of like mind game, like, will he have this, will he have that, it is really interesting, and I wouldn't be surprised if it happened here.
Do you see Liliana Vess coming in if the game goes to a more control-y pace where, suddenly it can start maybe taking apart your hand or catching you, where you're trying to implement the game plan now, and I sort of start to dismantle that?
I could certainly see the merit of Liliana. I'm a little skeptical that it's great for Ari to try to fight the control battle against a deck with 4 digs. That just seems like an unnecessary risk.
Sure.
But Ari might be forced into a position where he kind of has to. He just doesn't have enough aggro elements to just turn into an aggro deck. It's not like he has Fleece Main Lines and Rakshasas in his sideboard. So given that, I mean, if you're in that kind of game, Liliana is a good card.
Sometimes when you're sideboarding in 10, 11 cards, in a way, it's almost like you're sideboarding 1, because you're actually just saying, I'm not going to play with this deck, I'm going to play with this other deck. And in that sense, I wonder whether there's a sense that is Ari seriously disadvantaged? Because you've listed really very few things that he would want to do here. But is the fact that we've sort of labelled a lot of cards for McLaren just really indicative of almost a transformational idea that essentially just means, sure, the matchup may shift, but it's not like, oh, look at these key, utterly suppressing 3 cards that I get to bring in, whereas Ari doesn't have access to that?
Well, the fact that McLaren is sideboarding a lot more than Ari doesn't actually necessarily mean it's bad news for Ari. It just means it was a bad matchup for McLaren to begin with. I mean, the fact that Ari's sideboarding very few cards potentially means that his deck's kind of built to play against these Jeskai decks. And given that, you don't have to sideboard a whole lot, and that's a good thing.
Right.
Well-
I was just thinking, yeah, well, Ari would just want to kind of stick a siege rhino. Same thing he wanted to do in game 1, right?
Yeah, I mean, if he could add more siege rhinos to his sideboard, then he'd definitely do that.
What about all those other 4/5s for very cheap mana that have 3-point drain lives attached to them? So we're into shuffle mode right now. So the sideboarding is complete, just the sufficient randomization still to come.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited to see what their actual sideboard plan was.
Right.
I'm sure Tim will be in momentarily with such information.
With a long list, potentially. So we'll see what comes up. But Ari Lax has the lead, needs 2 out of the next 4. McLaren, not just been here at this table before, but here in the championship match before. 7 apiece. Let's see what McLaren has to work with. Well, we certainly see a collection of land, and it's much better off than last time round when he had severe mana problems as all his mountains came along for game 1. But,
Well,
nope.
Yeah, it was a flooded strand on an island, plus a bunch of red spells and
And he
dig through
just
time
couldn't
and
keep
dissolve.
again.
So excited to see the white, but would have liked to see a little bit more of a selection.
Yeah, it's not quite what you want.
See an Abzan charm there for Ari.
It's a shame that the players in the top 8 weren't forced to use the sleeves of the clan they were representing. I've heard claims of these sleeves are a lie, because it looks like actually Ari, I believe, is he on the Jeskai sleeves with McLaren on the Abzan sleeves? Are they switched?
Yeah, it looks like they are switched.
Yeah, so Ari seemed to send away their 3-land, a Corsair, utter end. Huh.
Well, if that was Ari's hand, then that's a pretty aggressive mulligan. It depends on what the mana makeup was. I mean, when we're trying to like squint and see exactly what the 7
that's
pressed
right.
cards together are.
Right.
It could have been, if it's like Caves of Koilos, Temple of Silence, Urborg, yeah, sure, you're going to ship a hand that does not have any green mana. But it is very interesting to see what the hand actually was.
Yeah, I wasn't going to go for aggressive. I had the word disciplined in mind for his send away at that point, because I'm like, hey, look, I've got land, I've got spells, off we go. But I guess you think about it a bit more in a Pro Tour final. Yeah, so
6 it is.
6 it is, at least for now, and let's hope it stays there. We've been relatively mana mulligan free through the top 8. Hasn't been too bad. But you always want players to start with 7 if you can.
No, though both starting with 6 is kind of interesting. It actually it actually punishes McLaren's deck more, because Ari has cards like Sylvan Caryatid and Corsair, which are cheap ways to get cards back. Dig Through Time gets so much worse when you don't have excess spells to be casting and putting in the graveyard.
Right. So, let's have another go at this to get game 2 underway. Let's see if we can. There's a Sarkhan the Dragon Speaker. Magma Jet.
That looks an awful lot like a castable Mantis
Yeah,
Rider.
3-land Mantis Rider.
Yeah, it's a pretty perfect hand, but I saw a Forest and 2 Sylvan Caryatids out of Ari, and it looks like a Lenore away, so it looks like Ari's set too.
Yeah. All right, away we go with game 2 of the Pro Tour Khans of Tarkir final here in Honolulu. Rich, BDM, Luis with you in the booth, and it will be a turn 1 tapped tri-land for Shaun McLaren opposite a rather old-school Forest for Ari Lax. An untapped land without a play? Scandalous.
Well, it doesn't sound like a big deal. It represents, A, that Ari does no other tap lands in his hand, because there's no reason to do that, and B, that he's going to lose a little bit of value, because the tap lands are not only good value to play and scry, it means if he draws lands later, they're more likely to be tap lands, which is where it's more inconvenient.
So turn 2 Caryatid for Lax, and Shaun McLaren with his full 3-mana colours available, we believe will cast a Mantis Rider sometime fairly soon. with all those lovely abilities.
Well, he actually drew a Rabble Master, so he had the option there, but I like Mantis Rider just because it flies over to Caryatid and pressures Ari a lot more. If McLaren played a Rabble Master, then Ari immediately played a Siege Rhino, the Rabble Master wasn't getting a whole lot of work done.
Right, there you get a look at Shaun McLaren's hand, Temple of Epiphany, Magma Jet, Rabble Master, and of course the Sarkhan the Dragon Speaker.
Meanwhile, Lax has added Sylvan Caryatid with Courser of Krufix, so the pair are back in harness again.
And he's really the last champion for the Courser of Krufix.
They have all fallen so far.
Yeah, there were you know, dread of the 32 Courser of Krufix top 8.
That's right.
Yeah, and I guess there were something like 12 coursers in the top 8. And then, but there were 16 Caryatids. Or no, Sigrist didn't have Caryatids, so there are actually still also 12 Caryatids.
So here is Goblin Rabble Master, and the attacking thing gets promptly eaten. Mantis Rider still there for Shaun McLaren. Lax working with information available to Shaun McLaren as well. Caves of Koilos is on top of Lax's deck.
And actually that makes it 8 coursers because Sigrist wasn't playing Courser or Caryatid. So this was the dominance of Courser was perhaps understated or overstated here.
Brian David Marshall, do you have lots and lots of writing on a piece of paper?
I do. Not a lot of writing for Ari Lax. Just 4 cards out, 4 cards in. Took out a Johnny Elspeth, 2 Elspeth, a Hero's Downfall, and brought in 3 Bile Blights and a Liliana Vest.
Second. Go 14th.
What do you think about that, Luis?
Oh, I like Bioblight just because it kills Rabble Master. Even if it's kind of out of control, it can kill the Goblin tokens, kills Mantis Rider. It also makes the double Mantis Rider starts really risky from McLaren's point of view. So I like Bioblight a lot. The Liliana seems like it may be just more of a value card. I don't know how it lines up against Elspeth or a Johnny. A Johnny and Liliana are actually kind of similar. So those make sense to board into for me.
Shaun McLaren, on the other hand, took out, as we predicted, 2 Anger of the Gods, went down 2 Lightning Strike, took out 2 Banishing Light, went up an Erase, went up a Disdainful Stroke, went up 3 Dissolve, and went up Phyrexian Revoker. So no end hostilities, though.
So he looks like he kept all his creatures in, didn't board in end hostilities, but did board in the dissolves. And he does seem to like taking out Banishing Light under the assumption that maybe his opponents will be boarding in ways to interact with them.
So we're up to 2 Courser of Krufix now on the right-hand side of the table, plus an Elvish Mystic and Sylvan Caryatid for Ari Lax. There's Shaun McLaren from Canada. There's Lax playing their second game here in the final. Remember, the winner, $40,000 US and guaranteed platinum status. They will instantly become, or continue to be, the case of McLaren, a Platinum Pro, the highest levels of the game.
Stoke the Flames. Target. You.
So Stoke the Flames, target you. McLaren very much on the beatdown plan because Lax goes to 10 off the Stoke the Flames, then in came Mantis Rider. There's a Heroes waiting on top.
And Ari really needed to hit a land there since now I think he actually might just be dead. It's as fast as that sounds. He has to take a point of damage to going to 6 to cast Bioblight on the Mantis Rider. Magma Jet puts him to 4, and then Sarkhan flies over and deals the last 4. Ari really needed to play a land in order to gain 2 life there, but it does not look like that's going to work out.
Can he... I was wondering if he could have played Liliana.
If he played Liliana, he could, tutor for a land, but then he's not casting the Bioblight, so the Mantis Rider's hitting him, which more than counteracts that. McLaren finding a Jeskai Charm 2 for just additional unnecessary burn. I mean, he doesn't know that Ari is going to be unable to kill Sarkhan before it attacks here.
Yeah, and when you look at that board state and you look on the right-hand side and you see double Caryatid, double Courser, Elvish Mystic, you can see how Standard has shifted. Yes, the same cards in play, but they would have utterly locked up the game a few months ago, and that would have just been, yep, I'm impenetrable at this point. And McLaren, Randy Buehler said it, flying is a massive, massive deal in the new Standard. And here comes Mantis Rider in, and Goblins are coming in.
And I like not attacking with the Sarkhan there, because you can just Jeskai Charm, because you know that Ari has to take a point of damage off his caves in order to cast your removal spell.
Yeah, and there's a big sigh from Ari Lax there because we are all tied up at 1 apiece. 1 and 1, 2 down, a maximum of 3 to go here in the final. Will Ari Lax take down his first Pro Tour in his first Pro Tour top 8? That is something that Shaun McLaren has already done, winning Pro Tour Born of the Gods in his first Pro Tour top 8. And if McLaren is going to win this, well, maybe it could be all about the Goblins and their very, very nasty Rabble Master. Here it is. So there you see it. It looks kind of cheery coming out of the card at you there, but cheery he most definitely is not when you're on the other side of the table.
I love this notion that he's best suited for swarm decks where, you know, you've actually seen him start to make his way into these kind of like Jeskai sort of hybrid aggro control decks where he just is like a Keldjorin outpost.
Yeah, I mean, he's actually more mid-rangey than he looks. Like, he definitely shows up in, like, the mono-red, you know, goblins, like, red deck
and
wins
he's
type
perfectly
deck.
at home there.
Yeah, but in, like, something like a Mardu mid-range deck or a Jeskai mid-range, you know, Jeskai deck wins sort of thing, the fact that he can just cast Stoke, the interaction between Goblin Rabble Master and Stoke the Flames is actually one of the most important parts about the card. As we saw that game, you know, Shaun McLaren was able to use it to cast Stoke and he cast Magma Jet in the same turn.
Right, and also by casting Stoke with it, he was able to sort of store up a goblin that might have had to run itself into its demise.
Yeah, the words if able.
Right.
Well, I'm really sorry. I tapped for functionally mana that turn, so I was unable.
Yep, and that lets you save up, like BDM said, save up goblins, and which even gets better because it lets your Rabble Master then attack as like a 4-2 or 5-2. And in the case of attacking into something like Siege Rhino, attacking as a 5-2 is very, very different than attacking as a 4-2.
What, if anything, in the course of Game 2 will Ari Lax have learned about Shaun's plans moving forward?
The most relevant piece of information is that Shaun still had Goblin Rabble Master in his deck. I mean, no, I don't think anyone anticipated Mantis Rider coming out. The card's just too good against Ari. The presence of Rabble Master makes it a little less likely that there are end hostilities lurking around. I mean, that's not a guarantee, and we didn't see anything like Dissolve, so we don't actually know what the numbers of those cards are yet from Ari's side. But just the presence of a Rabble Master would make me suspect that there aren't a ton of end hostilities. Maybe there's one, maybe there's two, but that's not, you know, McLaren's base plan.
So let's take us to the next point. If you're McLaren and you accurately predict that what you've just said is in Ari Lax's head, even though you've just won a game with Goblin Rabble Master and with end hostilities in your sideboard, do you now swap around and get rid of the Goblin Rabble Masters and go down the control path that we sort of outlined at the end of Game 1?
I actually don't think that's a bad idea, and one of the main reasons is when you're on the draw, Rabble Master is just that much worse. Because Rabble Master gets good when you spiral out of control, when you have multiple Goblin tokens. When you're on the draw and you have to play it into a Corsair, your Goblin immediately dies, it just becomes that much less effective, and it actually looks like Shaun McLaren's got a fistful of Goblin Rabble Masters and Lightning Strikes that are, you know, heading to the sideboard.
Yeah. Yeah, we're watching him on one of the monitors here, and it looks like he's taken out at least 2 of them.
Such an intricate dance when there's so much at stake, and it really is suddenly well beyond the cards that are actually going to be in play. It is well, I know that you might surmise that given what happened in the last game, this might be true, and in fact it was true. So I'd like it to not be true, because you have to respect it might still be true, and then I can get you coming and going.
Right.
That's the goal.
So we were talking earlier about the opportunity Shaun McLaren has here to become the first player to win 2 Pro Tours in a calendar year.
Oh, well,
the first. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Win
To do that.
And that other players have done that. Nikolai Herzog in 2004. It looks like Kai has done it twice in one season. And then without 2000 2001 season, he has 2, and then you go ahead to the 2001-2002 season and the 2002-2003 season.
Well, I mean, this wouldn't be Kai, but it would be Jeskai. Buddy. Just saying.
Sorry, my mic clipped out for a second. What did you say?
Nothing.
Yeah, sorry, I was talking to the director, calling my agent, and working out a new deal.
So Ari Lax, as you can see, is most definitely not in the feature match area. Now, certainly seen players take a moment away from the stage. Is that something that you advocate, BDM, or do you prefer to try and, sort of, if you like, stay in the zone?
Have you watched Ari Lax in the feature match area? He drinks about a gallon of liquid every 2 games. It's not surprising to me at all that he needs to take breaks.
Yeah, staying hydrated is important, and as much as we don't need another article telling us that, it is actually something you should do.
True story. Every time I'm in an airport and I see Sun Tzu's The Art of War, I keep thinking of buying it just so I can write that article, because I'm the only person who's never written that article.
Well, I haven't either, but that's because I have some respect.
Thank you very much.
Sun Tzu's The Art of Staying Hydrated.
Yeah.
Just give it my hand.
Yeah, I don't know if it would.
It's close.
Now
I
this is
couldn't kill the rider, so I felt like I had to just like get out ahead. Could have been wrong.
Looks like there's some snippets of conversation about the matchup there, which
Yeah.
is always interesting. I think one of the best examples of that was at Worlds last year in Amsterdam when we had Ben Stark and Brian Kilder talking at the table about their matchup. That was really good. I mean, that sort of insight is awesome, and I think you'll see that more at Worlds this year because it's a small field and so many people know each other so well.
For those of you planning your viewing, don't forget to join us next time around when we will have not one but 2 amazing tournaments in the space of a week. You will have the World Championship, and of course you will have the World Magic Cup. 72 nations represented by their teams. And then we'll have the biggest Sunday of the year. You will see everything decided in a webcast not to be missed. We cannot wait to see you there from Nice, France in December.
We're going to see at least 4 of our competitors from this top 8 that weekend. Right?
Never know.
We're going to
That's
see Shaun McLaren, Even Flock. We're going to see Li Shitian, and we're going to see Tiago as well, who's going to be playing in the World Magic Cup alongside Willie Adel.
Yeah, and 3 days ago, we'd have looked at the teams and gone, well, Brazil's got Willie Adel.
Right.
And now here we are with Tiago Saporito.
Willie was very excited. He's like, my team's gotten so much better. Last week it was me and 3 random guys, and now it's me, a Pro Tour top 8 competitor, and 2 random guys.
Which I think he was being a little tongue-in-cheek
He
there.
was. He absolutely was.
Because it's not like Tiago got better by making a top 8. The top 8 just demonstrates that he is good.
Yeah, of course. We'd like to believe it's, magic fairy dust was sprinkled on him as soon as he made the top 8.
Well, I mean, there is some amount of that, people do have some amount of that.
So let's see if the players can keep for game 3, or whether we're into the mulligan dance. There's Lax. McLaren has said, I'm going to keep, and so we are away. And it's Scry to get things going. Temple of Malady for Ari Lax, and Temple back the other way for Shaun McLaren.
And the Banishing Light in McLaren's hand is a new one, which, wasn't in game 2, according to the sideboard guide we got. Again, indicating he's perhaps in more of a controlling role.
All right, so Sylvan Caryatid, and there you see, coming into focus, the McLaren hand. Sark and Dragon Speaker stoke the flames.
We see the Keranos as well.
Yeah,
Which
the
was
God of Storms could be coming down.
I'm going to go to 22. You'll go to 17.
And now,
And actually, Brad Nelson said it best on Twitter yesterday, I believe, after a loss, where he's like, it all seems like they either have 0 Siege Rhinos or 3 Siege Rhinos. And Ari looks like he has closer to 3. He's got double Siege Rhino Sorin in his hand.
And double Siege Rhino was more than enough on previous occasions here in the top 8.
and then, so Ajani was a card that Ari had sided out. But he sided out 1. So he still has 1 in his deck, which is in hand.
More Scry action for Lax. As you see, that Siege Rhino has been banished, at least temporarily. Banishing Light.
Definitely temporarily in the sense that there's going to be another one in play soon enough.
24, you're going to go to 14.
So here we are. And there you see McLaren's hand, along with Mystic Monastery and Shivan Reef. We have Banishing Light, Stoke the Flames, Keranos, God of Storms, and Sark and the Dragon Speaker.
And McLaren's last couple of draw steps have been very terrain-filled. As a he's got a lot of lands and not a lot of answers to Siege Rhino. Both Stoke and Sarkhan are, a point short.
You got to get them both going at the same time.
Yeah, that would be. It's an impressive feat though, because Sarkhan's not going to live through a Siege Rhino very easily.
No, it is not.
He gets smashed down to 1, but then can't deal 4 the next turn.
In comes the Rhino from Lax.
No blocks.
No blocks.
Give it a 10.
And McLaren falls to 10 life.
10, 6, 24.
Smash. Here's a Johnny Minter of Heroes.
I'd like to look at the top.
I'm going to look at the top 4, says Lax. And I think, is that an Elspeth?
Certainly an Elspeth.
Yep, there we go.
And Ari not wanting to overcommit. I mean, he could have upped the pressure by making Siege Rhino a 7/8, but then he just plays right into Jeskai Charm. So I believe that's why he did not do that.
Right, he just wants a steady stream of threats to deploy against Shaun McLaren, and Johnny's going to give him that.
He also didn't want to end up in a situation where Shaun goes end of turn, Lightning Strike, you're a Johnny, or Magma Jet, you're a Johnny, or Jeskai Charm, something like that, then cast End Hostilities, then burn down to Johnny.
Dragon Lord.
Here's Keranos, God of Storms, God in play.
So Ari can actually put McLaren down to 1 here, I believe. Or it looks like 2. He can Johnny the Siege Rhino up to a 7 and then Soren it up to an 8.
You have
Jeskai Charm, Stoke the Flames, and Sarkhan.
He's certainly checking to see if the coast is clear here.
Yeah. And my best guess is that he takes Jeskai Charm, because that's the card that can mess with the Siege Rhino the most.
Take
It's also one of the cheaper cards, and one of the ways McLaren gets out of this is by playing 2 spells next turn,
Yeah.
especially if he draws an extra card off Keranos.
Jeskai Charm.
He does take Jeskai Charm.
It's almost like you've been here before.
I can dimly remember it.
Give it 10. I'm going to take an additional 0 damage. Soren.
Here's Soren,
Make a vampire.
straight into vampire mode.
Sure. Johnny to 6.
I like 2 on the Vampire and 1 on the Siege Rhino here.
Yeah, and that's what
And
he's
so
doing.
does he.
1. Attack 5. You go 5.
And McLaren is down to 5 and in all kinds of trouble in what has been a blistering game 3.
Ari has way too many permanents with dice on them for McLaren to handle.
Right, he's at a 4-0 dice disadvantage.
Would you call that a dice advantage?
Yes.
You're like, no, under no circumstances would I do that.
The circumstances right now are that Ari Lax has got game 3. He has monstered his way past Shaun McLaren, and now he stands 1 game away from his slice of Magic history. Can he become Pro Tour champion of Khans of Tarkir? We are down to the last couple of games, or maybe just 1, to find out.
Both players immediately go to their sideboard.
Well,
Which card did Ari flash there?
oh, I missed it.
Did he flash in a race or?
That could be pretty cunning, because if he flashes a race at the and then boards them out, he might entice McLaren to board out Banishing Light.
But it was a pretty deliberate, like drop this card on the table. It was a white card.
If
so-
it's a little too ham-fisted, then
Yeah,
then McLaren might get the read. McLaren seems like he's a tricky guy.
I'm trying to see if there's any other card that could have been. No, it looks like that.
I mean, Elspeth would be the only other mono white card, right?
Oh, that's Sigrid's deck I'm looking at.
There you go.
Oh, he may have shown him the Mass Calcify.
that would be good. I like that.
That's what it is. Mass Calcify, just out of our view, but you can see it right
Yeah,
there.
it's-
Is just face up the entire match. Yeah, he's only cited that card in by accident.
Yeah, the whole tournament.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's good to know that his whole sideboard got used.
So if Ari thinks that
15.
McLaren is on the control plan, that can change what Ari does a little bit, verifying there's 15 with
He's
the
like,
Mass
oh yeah,
Calcify.
15.
I think that McLaren has more room to sideboard than Ari does. Like I said, Ari's main deck is kind of built to beat the deck, and he doesn't have a ton of different
Not gonna
sideboard
happen.
cards he wants.
I will not allow that to happen.
Ari reiterating that he will not be siding in Mass Calcify. McLaren, on the other hand, as we can see, has distinct plans based on whether it's on the player to draw or whether, maybe depending on what he thinks what take Ari's going to have on the matchup. And it looks like he's back to aggro here. Yeah, we can see all the Wrath and the Karanoses and the Banishing Lights in the sideboard. Well, still the Lightning Strikes there. I guess he likes Magma Jet more than Lightning Strike. Maybe under the idea that neither really kills much except Sorin, so you might as well have the one that scries.
Interestingly, that looked like almost all the Anger of the Gods in his sideboard. Looked like he had 3 in his sideboard, so that means he kept 1 in.
Huh. I mean, I could see maybe having an Anger. I guess you kill Caryatid and you kill Vampire tokens. Okay, yeah.
Fourth one's in the back.
I was trying to figure out how you could rationalize
I was a little
that,
surprised
Lightning
myself.
Strike I like a lot more. I mean, I'd rather just have a Lightning Strike in my deck at that point, maybe even 2.
Yeah.
And I think that's the conclusion he came to as well.
16 sideboard cards go down to 15.
And, I mean, as we've seen, I mean, McLaren can always just burn Ari out. There's no real reason for him to not. I mean, worst comes to worst, having an extra burn spell in his deck still just kind of meshes with the plan that the deck always has available.
In terms of burning him out, though, how backbreaking are Siege Rhinos? Is Rhino acceptable and Rhinos, is that the tipping point?
Well, 1 Rhino is almost enough to stop the straight burnout plan just because it also pressures Shaun and makes it so he doesn't have time to, sit there and cast Dig Through Time.
Mm-hmm.
The double Rhino means that Shaun really has to be in a position to actually just kill the Rhinos and kind of take a slightly more controlling aspect.
Sure.
Does it? Are you surprised that you haven't seen him bring in End Hostilities?
Well, he had it in game this last game when he was on the draw, but now that he's on the play, he's back on the Ravel Master plan. So, I mean,
so when he loses with End Hostilities, he goes back to the Goblin Rabble Master plan.
Well, it makes a lot of sense to board differently on the player draw.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially when you have such a swingy card like Goblin Rabble Master. So I'm not surprised that he's got this plan. It is interesting that the plan is so night or day here, but I mean. Again, I would expect him to have played against a lot of Abzan decks during the course of the tournament. So I imagine that this is not a new thing for him.
Excellent. Certainly not the best of Johnny ever. But top 2?
Sure.
Or actually, the Lauren one was also... Has there been a bad Johnny yet? All 5 of them have been great.
Yeah, I suppose. Depending on your definition of great for a Planeswalker.
I played pretty extensively. The only one I haven't played in the Pro Tour is Goldmane, because I was too busy casting Cryptic. I played that guy a lot before I got him on the Pro Tour, so.
I did not expect
I have played all 5 of Johnny's.
Tune into the relative merits of a Johnny.
The Johnny Power Rankings. Yeah. Feel free on Twitter to give us your 5 Johnny pick order.
Well, one's a Timmy, one's a Spike. They're both a Johnny.
Feel free to grade Rich's jokes.
No, don't. Can Lax take it down with 1 to spare, or will we go the distance as the Pro Tour Born of the Gods champion Shaun McLaren looks to go to a 2-time Pro Tour champion? He's on the play. Let's look at an opening hand, and I guess from a McLaren perspective, hope to see a Goblin Rabble Master that can come down and dominate the battlefield, and from the same perspective, an Ari Lax hand that does not have Siege Rhino in it.
Right. Turn 3 Siege Rhino has been bad news for Shaun McLaren here.
Both players keeping calm under the most intense of pressure. 7 cards apiece. All right, Shaun McLaren, you're up first. What do you have? And do you have 7 cards that you can keep? 4 land, a Phyrexian Revoker, a 5th land, and Stoke the Flames. Revoker, Flames, and 5. Luis, can he keep?
I'll keep.
This is pretty borderline, but I think keeping is fine given that you have the temples. I mean, it's not an optimal hand. You would mulligan it to 7 for sure, but given that the options are 6 or getting to scry straight to the bottom is not a good sign. and then play Revoker as one of the few answers to Sylvan Caryatid, it does make sense to keep the hand.
For Lax, we see 2 Abzan Charm. There's a Bile Blight there, an Elvish Mystic. Sorin is there, the Solemn Visitor.
And Ari playing turn 1 tap land. It looks like the plan is turn 2 Elvish Mystic, followed by potentially a turn 3 Sorin.
2 for McLaren.
Name Sylvan Caryatid.
Sylvan Caryatid is the card named on that Phyrexian Revoker.
And that's the card that it was put in the sideboard to name. I mean,
Yeah.
that is the reason that you have this card.
Elf's going to look pretty sweet here.
Oh no, you've stopped my mana accelerate. Wait, no, you haven't. Lax taking his time.
Take a look at Ari Lax's hand and see what he's thinking about this turn.
He's thinking about whether he wants to curve Elvish Mystic to potentially play a Sorin or just to have a Bile Blight this turn. It looks like he's going with the Bile Blight, potentially playing around a Mantis Rider, which he's unaware that McLaren doesn't actually have.
A Bile Blight takes down the Phyrexian Revoker.
And I think Ari's concern there was if he played Elvish Mystic and then McLaren did have a Mantis Rider, he could be too far behind.
Good. We didn't also have the Seeker. Okay.
Pass the turn.
Turn strike you.
So, there's the classic burn spell at end of turn. Lightning Strike you. Lax will go to 16.
Draw 2 cards at the end of the turn here for Ari.
I like keeping up Abzan Charm to potentially deal with a Mantis Rider, especially since you don't have anything to accelerate into with Elvish Mystic. I do not like casting Abzan Charm to draw 2 here. I mean, he might do it just to use his mana, but McLaren's already Lightning Striking you. Taking a damage off Mana Confluence to then do that does not seem like the place you want to be.
There's Elvish Mystic. McLaren pausing at end of turn.
Yeah, I mean, this Magma Jet's going to get cast. The question is whether you just
Turn
want to...
Magma Jet you.
Yeah.
Me.
No. Now, the feign of surprise in Ari Lax's voice there.
I like the aggressive line there. I mean, McLaren doesn't have any pressure right now, but he's got a sequence of burn spells coming. He's also getting to scry a lot here. He's scryed now 3 off lands plus 2 off Magma Jet, potentially the 1 off Dissolve in the near future here.
Yeah, he's holding a Dissolve.
He's a lot of burn away, though. Ari's got a decent amount of life.
Lax draws. And there's Wingmate Rock in hand.
3 cards in hand.
My preference would be to cast Sorin here off of everything but the Mana Confluence. You certainly don't want to trade 1 off Elvish Mystic for 1 off Mana Confluence. See what McLaren does. Probably end up making a Vampire token and setting up a Wingmate Rock next turn.
Decides to scry first with a Temple of Malady.
Yeah.
Passes the turn.
Ari, I think Ari's just completely playing around something like Sarkhan. He wants to leave the Abzan Charm up for that, or maybe a Mantis Rider, but I think he's going to end up maybe taking too much damage off burn spells. He's giving McLaren a lot of time.
There's Stoke the Flames, so Lax falls further behind.
And there's a dig through time. I mean, this is playing right into McLaren's hands. I think Ari may be playing a little bit conservatively, given that McLaren has all these good late game cards.
So, more land. Ari, this time, will be in action. For 4 mana. I was thinking about using the Mystic here.
Sorin.
And does, and there's Sorin.
Is that going to get dissolved?
Well, it looks like McLaren,
Thinking.
he's got 4 cards in his graveyard, so it works out perfectly to dissolve it and then dig through time end of turn. It's a pretty effective use of mana. I wouldn't be surprised if he wants to do that, especially since Sorin is kind of annoying. It takes multiple cards to deal with, and the lifelink is very relevant when you're trying to burn your opponent out.
And what is he worried about slipping through the cracks if he counters this?
Ari's already played a land, so it can't even be a Siege Rhino, so there really is no big drawback to doing that.
And as you said, Luis, he's been scrying all game long. Let's do it all again. Off that Dissolve.
Now he's going to get to look 7 cards deep after this scry. pushes that card to the bottom.
You have 1 in hand.
Yep.
So you have 2 in hand. Pass the turn. Dig.
Pass.
Sure.
And yes, here's dig. So, top 7, and 2 of them are going to be in Shaun McLaren's hand before this turn is over. 2 land and Abzan Charm. There's a lot of land there. Couple of...
Again, please, I didn't hear that.
Go ahead.
So it looks like McLaren just picked up 7 points of burn. It looks like he's very close to being able to burn Ari out. So I think Ari at this point might be his best shot. He has to take 1 off Mana Confluence, which is painful. But he could cast a Wingmate Rock. But no, he drew Siege Rhino.
Siege
Oh,
Rhino.
just the perfect card here.
He needed to draw that because McLaren actually
Wow.
has 11 points of burn in hand.
Or 17. Yeah, that's some of the numbers. Go.
McLaren, 17. Lax, 13.
Now, do you just have to keep firing the burn off here?
Oh yeah, if you
And you just go for it.
if you start burning the Siege Rhino, you're not winning this game.
Stoke.
6.
Strike.
Stoke and strike. Untap.
Lax, 6.
McLaren has drawn. It's red. No?
It's a plains.
It's a plains. As not red and useful as it could possibly be.
Go
It
ahead.
doesn't even have a color.
Pass. Was that the moment where Ari Lax claims the Pro Tour, finding a Siege Rhino on top with lethal in McLaren's hand?
McLaren's got 1 draw step, depending on what Ari does here, because
Sure.
Ari can now play Wingmate Rock, go to 5, and if McLaren doesn't draw a burn spell, and it can't be a Mana Strider or Sarkin anymore, if he doesn't draw a burn spell, Ari's going to get to gain 4 life on the attack next turn.
Wow.
We could be moments away from Ari Lax becoming a Pro Tour champion here in the island paradise of Hawaii.
Am I dying?
Am I dying? Asks Ari.
I think McLaren might want to just Jeskai Charm Ari down to 1, because that way if he draws Dig Through Time, I guess he gets to cast 2 spells no matter what there, so... Yeah, no, he wants to do that, because then if he can cast Dig Through Time for 4, find another Jeskai Charm.
Huge moments here.
This is an incredible sweat for Ari here. And Shaun
Oh.
McLaren. They're both, like, in, I'm sure agony trying to figure out what the top card of Shaun McLaren's deck is.
How many live cards are left in Shaun McLaren's deck?
Oh, he's got a lot of them.
Lax waiting to find out whether the dream is real.
And Ari actually has lethal next turn because the Abzan Charm represents 2 extra points of damage.
And
4 to me.
4 to me, asks Ari. You know
Or
it.
1.
He's at 1. Can McLaren force game 5?
You gonna slam it, or are we gonna?
I'm gonna peel it real slow.
I'm going to...
I'm gonna hear them.
McLaren wants to make sure that only Shaun McLaren can see this card until we can see this card. You tease Shaun McLaren.
I like it. I
your
like
style
it. I
better
mean,
than the commentary.
whether you get to advance or not, it depends on this card. Take all the time you want.
That's fine if he isn't going to kill Ari, but if he is, that's the savagest roll.
And hostilities.
It is a Mantis Rider.
And that will not do it.
What is this cheer? I want to know.
Oh, Ari. Oh, Shaun.
Ari Lax yesterday was not super excited after he made the top 8. He said, I have 3 more matches to win. I learned that
I'm just
from
up to
Craig
the side. I'm not
Wesco.
activating this card.
Oh, Ari. is there a way for McLaren to take it from here?
Well, technically McLaren is not dead on the next attack.
did.
Right.
So,
He plays the Mantis Rider and blocks something. And
Right.
Gets to untap.
from that point of view, yes, but it's very, very unlikely. So what has to happen now is Ari attacks, gains 5 life, or 4 life, going up to
Actually,
5.
slow roll in the world.
McLaren now has to draw, it looks like a dig through time into double burn spell, which is not implausible. I mean, not completely implausible.
Right. If he brought in end hostilities, which we're pretty sure he did not,
Right, he could then reset the board.
he can then reset the board. Yeah, put it back into a top deck mode.
Yep, time to make a play.
It's a dig.
It's not. No, no, Ari, it is not a dig.
Check Mantis.
It's a Mantis.
1, 2, 3,
Ari,
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13. Exile your guy.
Sure.
Is it my turn?
Yep.
Ari actually has the double Abzan charm, so
Yep.
in. Ari Lax has the handshake, and Ari Lax is the champion of Pro Tour Khans of
For a second there, I
Tarkir
thought you had to use, kinetic
2014.
outputs to do that.
No,
Like,
no, 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 no. I could have still done it with the bird's life.
Yeah.
Just make sure I did it.
Oh boy. Ari Lax claims the title.
Good job, man.
Thanks. Probably see you in Barcelona.
Wow.
Hopefully.
And Shaun McLaren comes up one match short.
Very quickly, Ari, Shaun and I can take you aside for about 60 seconds.
Well, goodness gracious me, that was just astonishing. Boys, Ari Lax takes the title in his first Pro Tour, top 8, and boy, did Shaun McLaren make us sweat at the end.
yeah, that was
Really,
intense.
really appreciate his showmanship there. Ari Lax been playing the game since he was 5 years old. 5 years old, and as soon as you are a kid and you find out about the Pro Tour, you have to be dreaming about that moment.
Right.
And so exciting for him. You could see he could barely contain himself. He could barely get to his own turn to kill Shaun McLaren there. Just a tremendous amount of emotion from Ari, who really does try to keep himself in check somewhat. He struggled in this top 8, though.
Yeah, which is understandable.
Luis, that was a startling final, and indeed a great top 8 all round. We've seen some terrific matches today.
Yeah, definitely.
And standard, just pretty open, and a ton of great decks, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of decks with Siege Rhinos, and there's a lot of different Jeskai colored decks, but there's still different decks. More so in the Abzan, but there's still, you've got from Mike Sigrid's, junk aggro deck, or his Abzan aggro deck, to Ari Lax's deck, which is the most controlling, to Tiago's deck, which is right in the middle. I mean, you can't argue that these aren't distinct decks.
Right.
And then, of course, we've got blue-black control sitting in the top 8
Right.
as well.
And I'm curious to see what happens with the Jeskai Ascendancy deck. Certainly seems like there are a number of different directions that people took it in. You guys played it one way. We saw a different version in the top 8. I'm curious to see what happens next week in LA
Yeah, definitely.
with Jeskai Ascendancy.
All right. New standard is here, and a new Pro Tour champion is here. It is Ari Lax. Let's head you back to the news desk and Marshall Sutcliffe.
And welcome back to the news desk. I can barely hear myself talk over the applause for Ari Lax, our champion here. Randy Bueller, Zach Hill, I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. Randy, what was going through your head on that last stretch?
I was like having flashbacks. It's like 4 to the face, knock the top of your deck. Can you channel the spirit of Craig Jones? No, not this time.
So close.
It was, oh my, you can't play a closer game than that.
No, that
was
was
an insane game.
Fantastic to watch, super tense. We're all sitting here. We've got a monitor so that we can watch the action here, and it was one of these things where
we almost
we're all
broke
doing.
this table, like leaning forward over it and trying to figure out
What a
what's
game.
going on. Just seeing every card, that was crazy.
Yeah, so what's going to happen now is we're going to run through kind of how the tournament, the top 8 went for you guys while we let Ari take a moment to celebrate with his friends. And also, we're going to get set up for the ceremony where they're actually going to announce the winner of the semifinals and all that kind of stuff. Then after that, you guys are going to come back to us, and we're going to get Ari right here at the desk to ask him some questions as well. So why don't we take a look at the bracket for the top 8, and we'll see kind of how things formed as we came down the line here. We had a pretty nice top 8 here. Shaun McLaren versus Li Shitian. We had Mike Sigrist versus Ivan Floch. We had Thiago Saporito versus Andre Strosky, and Ari Lax versus Yuya. So Ari drawing really one of the toughest players in the world, Yuya Watanabe, to start off with. It was never easy for Ari, but as you can see, he was able to get by Yuya to make it to the semifinals. Moving up the list there, Andre Strosky played against Thiago Saporito. Saporito defeated him to move into the semifinals and had to face Ari Lax as well. Moving on to the next matchup, we had Ivan Floch versus Mike Sigrist. Mike defeated Ivan in his blue-black control list. To make the semifinals, that left Shaun McLaren versus Li Shitian in the only combo deck to make the top 8. Shaun defeated that to move on. Ari then defeated Thiago in an Abzan mirror to put Ari into the final. Shaun McLaren gets by Mike Sigrist's aggro Abzan deck to put him in the finals. And as you just saw live on the air, Ari Lax is our champion. So this was not only his first Pro Tour win, it was also his first Pro Tour top 8, Zach. It's got to be insane to finally break through, and then when you do, you get a championship as well.
Yeah, I mean, feeling that, I mean, there's so much pressure in your first top 8, and so to be able to convert that through to a win is, truly incredible performance as a player. I mean, the thing that stands out to me was just how good of a read on the metagame Ari had. If you look at the bracket, at no point did an Abzan mid-range deck lose to the Jeskai Wins deck that it really came to define this tournament.
That's right. All right, so Rich Hagan is standing over in the feature match area right now to present our champion.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the award ceremony here at Pro Tour Khans of Tarkir. We begin by welcoming to the stage our finalist, winning $20,000 US. Put your hands together, please, for Canada's Shaun McLaren. Shaun McLaren, so nearly a back-to-back champion, but there can only be one winner. And this time, winning $40,000 US, the champion of Pro Tour Khans of Tarkir from the United States, Ari Lax. Ari Lax, Pro Tour champion, Ari Lax, Platinum Pro. How does that sound?
Oh yeah, that one too. I forgot about that. Wow, that's great. Yeah.
Pretty life-changing, right?
Yeah, but I'll be back next week or something like that, right?
And we can do it all again. Tell us about what it means to have this group of guys behind you and beside you over the months and the years.
It's been a great experience. This has been a team that we've been working on and changing for, what was it? The first one together was Montreal. That was 2 years ago almost.
Yep. Gate Crash 2013.
Yeah, and we've won 2 Pro Tours in the time. So we've been doing something right, I guess. Yeah.
A fantastic job. What did it feel like when you knew that you had the win in hand?
It's just the same smirk as always, right?
Ladies and gentlemen, the champion of Pro Tour Khans of Tarkir, Ari Lax. We'd like to thank all the judges, the players, of course you at home, for being part of this Pro Tour experience. Join us again in Nice, France for the World's Week. We'll do it all again, twice as big. But until then, let's head back to the news desk and Marshall Sutcliffe.
And welcome back to the news desk. Ari Lax, our champion from Team TCG player. Wow, you could see all the emotion there and all the teammates. Randy, what was it like back in the day? You won your Pro Tour. Was it like that? Was it big checks and trophies and flashing lights, or was it a little more subdued?
I didn't get a big check.
No big check?
They skipped the big check. Like almost every Pro Tour has always, and I was very disappointed.
I would be
It's
too.
my biggest disappointment about winning the Pro Tour. You don't exactly have disappointments about that, but yeah, no big check.
Yeah, because that was pretty insane, and you get to look at what it's like now. I mean, Ari, I love it. He held
yeah, it
up
was
the
a great
trophy.
scene.
Like that's what you're supposed to do,
Sure.
right? Get excited. It's time to get excited. In fact, that's one of the things I'm going to ask Ari about when we get him over here on the desk. Right now, we have our producer Deb. She's grabbing him. Once he's ready to come over, we'll get him. But we've seen a lot of things on social media reacting to how Ari's like, he'll clap when he wins, or he'll show a little bit of emotion. But I mean, Rich talked about it in the booth. There's a sea of things going on underneath that stoic surface. I think it's okay to show that every once in a while.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, and this is an emotional thing. I mean, people work crazy hard for these events. Ari's writing about Magic every week. He's play testing hours and hours and hours and hours for this event. He's been trying to, break through to the top 8 for years. So to be able to do that, not just that, but win this event, I mean, this is real emotion. This is genuinely powerful. And so, it's not as though you're in perfect control of yourself on each one of these top decks where every draw can win or lose a game. I mean, it's, how can you not react to that?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking watching him too. And I gotta say, from our perspective, and I'm sure from yours at home as well, it's fun to watch, right? Like it gives us a window into his. I want to see more of that. I like that. And seeing him up on the stage hold up that trophy like that, I thought that was great. So wow, we're winding down here. We're gonna grab Ari and have a few words with him, but we got to think about what we want to ask him when he gets here. I'm gonna ask him about that. I'm also realized Ari kind of notched 3 things off of probably the top 3 things on the list. Win a Pro Tour, top 8 a Pro Tour, and become a Platinum Pro. Those are things that have eluded him thus far, and today he gets to just scratch them all off the list at once.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge moment. And one of the things that's great about this happening so early in the season is it really gets you to start thinking, okay, like, how am I going to approach Magic differently? Starting off, I mean, is this going to be one of those things, is the team going to be the same? Or more people going to want to work with them? Is he going to get offers from other teams? I mean, is he going to take those if he gets them? I mean, there's a lot of decisions to make around this victory.
That is interesting because, we'll often say that the player is in a position to have a life-changing victory.
Right.
And sometimes we're referring to money, right? Because it's $40,000 is a lot and it can certainly put you on a different track. But I think that one thing that we don't often talk about here at the desk is what you're saying, which is that it also can change how you're viewed, your stature, and what teams and access you get from players in order to be, now maybe practicing with, I don't think he's going to leave TCG playing.
I don't either.
But I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, it gives him a little more clout where he can use that flexibility to, maybe figure out a way to go longer term with Magic.
Well, because at some point people start coming to you. Right? TCG player produced Pro Tour champions in Craig Wesco and Ari Lax.
Yes.
That kind of creates demand.
Yes, it absolutely does. All right, so we've got Ari. Why don't we bring him in right now? He's got the big check. He's got the trophy. And we got a big picture of you up on the screen. Ari, congratulations first and foremost.
Thanks.
You are our champion. Ari, virtual handshake. You're a little far away. We can do it. There you go.
He's tall. That helps.
How long have you been playing Magic? How old were you when you started?
I started playing somewhere between like 95 and 97. The first cards I remember playing with were like Ice Age and Mirage-ish cards.
How old
and
is that?
opening.
You're
Like
you?
4 in the story, maybe 7?
I'm 5 to 7. I'm now 24. My first packs were Classic 6th Edition and Urza Saga, so if that dates me a little bit.
Now, we were talking before you got up here. You just checked 3 very major things off of your Magic checklist. You made the Pro Tour top 8.
Sure.
You are now Platinum. And might as well win it while you're there. You did that as well. Yeah. So, I mean, what else is left for you here? Are you looking, can you already not wait for the next Pro Tour to come back and win again? Or how does your mind start going?
I literally have been thinking about this since top 8. I'm just like, I'm going to start testing next week. Next week, good? maybe I'll give it a week off. Maybe a week off.
That's fantastic.
I got great news that Andrew Shrout requalified, and he was one of the most important people on our team for the last Modern Pro Tour.
He won the Magic Online PTQ?
He won the Magic Online PTQ. Steve Rubin, who built the deck for this Pro Tour, he X5'd this tournament, so he's back. I am pumped for that team.
All right, now talk to us a little bit about Team TCG Player, your team. Maybe some of the players that are notable for you, how the dynamic worked, all that kind of stuff.
Let's see, we have Craig Wesco, like the big names. Let's see, we got Craig Wesco, Conley Woods, Chris Fennell as the big names. We recruited Neil Reeves for this Pro Tour.
Wow.
Chris and Neil took over limited test. If I took over, they just drafted twice, and I'm like, guys, this is how it works. Do what we tell you. I did, and that was the first time
You drafted 5 color decks both drafts, right?
Incidentally, it's the backup strategy.
Not bad.
Yeah, so that was the first time I 3-0'd a Pro Tour draft since, I think, Philly 2011 or 12, whatever that was. The first modern Pro Tour.
Neil Reeves seems like a nice addition to the team.
Neil Reeves and Chris are 2 of the best limited players of all time. Conley and Craig do their thing better than almost anyone, basically anyone else in the world. Like, Craig is the best at building interactive aggro decks. Conley's the best brewer. We had Adrian Sullivan who took over control. We had everyone playing every role that we needed them to for this Pro Tour, and me playing the role of touching everything and saying, this deck's good, this deck's bad, this deck's good. This deck's great. That's what I'm winning the Pro Tour with.
A lot of trust in the team about like trusting your opinion to say this isn't good, or trusting, you know, maybe Adrian's opinion on a control deck.
We trust the experts. The one thing I think that's always stayed through the team is that in the end, whatever you play is your own decision. We never try to force things on anyone, but because I think that just always ends poorly when that happens.
So how did you select this deck, and how did you arrive at the particular build you did?
So I think a lot of the build questions you'd have to talk to Steve Rubin a bit more about, but he was the Abzan junk mid-range rock guy from the start of testing, basically. And he had figured out a lot of the matchups, and we got to the house, and he was pretty happy with the deck, but it was missing a little something. And then, you know, Wednesday rolls around, I'm looking at Adrian's blue-black deck, feeling this is pretty good with Perilous Vaults, and he just sits down, he's like, I think I figured it out, let me play. I'm like, okay, I will crush you. I had been crushing all the other Abzan decks, and he just 5-0s me. I'm like, you just cut all the cards that are bad versus control. Or bad versus, you know, it's like, what is this? This is, you know, an inbred deck. I'm gonna play you with something else. And so I picked up Jeskai Tempo, and he 4-0'd me again with that matchup. I'm like, okay, so the solution is just play all the good cards and none of the bad ones? Okay.
What were the bad cards that got cut?
Main deck Bile Blights. Fleece Mane Lion is significantly worse in this metagame than he was in Block because of Siege Rhino being 4-5.
Makes sense.
A lot of the, you know, random, if you just look at the cards in the deck, they're all just very good. We found the right number of Wingmate rocks. You couldn't really turn them on if you had more than 2. Found the right Planeswalker splits. We tried so the 5-drop Planeswalkers were all mixed between the main and the sideboard at various points. We just ended up on the 2 Ajani's. Yeah, so just played all the good cards.
Can you walk us through the last few turns there? It was incredibly close down the stretch. What was going through your mind?
Well, as soon as I drew that Rhino, I felt pretty favored. He
had the burn in hand to kill you if you didn't play at that turn.
Yeah.
You were dead.
The dig was, I mean, dig is always scary. But so there was the few turns of the game where I wasn't casting the rock because I knew that he was trying to burn me, and I wanted to make sure that any creature he drew did no damage to me. And my assumption was that he might have like a Mantis Rider. And every time I could pass with the Abzan Charm up to kill the Mantis Rider, I was going to. So that was my entire logic that game, and I just drew the cards that made it work in the end.
Now, talk to me about being platinum. I know this is something you have been very close to in the past, and now you're platinum not just for this season, but for next season and a World Championships invite.
Yeah, it's nice. I mean, I'll say the same thing that I said when I lost to Luis. You know, whether I won it or not was, you know, that's just what happens. It was just, it's always the little things that get me. Like when I lost to Luis, it was like, I don't get free sleeping specials? Darn. So it's great. I guess I haven't really like thought through, you know, exactly what that means in terms of money and travel and all that other great stuff.
You got a lot of time to do that still.
Got some time, yeah.
Yeah, in fact, almost a year, like over a year of platinum time for you.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for taking some time to come chat with us. Congratulations on your well-earned victory. And looks like that's about going to do it for us from here from Hawaii. So before we leave, we want to thank the judges, the staff, the rest of the coverage team, our text writers in the back, of course, the players, but most importantly, you at home for joining us for the whole weekend. We love having you along. We'll also be at Grand Prix LA next weekend. Make sure you join us for that. And until next time, I'm signing off from the Tournament Center. We'll see you guys.